This is Dr. Justina Agnieszka Chevallier. This is going to be now description of methodology one by one in all components, in practical self-help exercises, and then in exercises in couples organized by selves, each of you, or hiring me and other providers, because there may be such need. If you hire me, I can help you determine if it's needed or not. If not, you don't need me, then you can establish such need selves. I will indicate when that is actually most plausible, that you will obtain expected results faster and in fact cheaper, life-wise, health-wise, and also finance-wise. Let's start. First, I specified in footnotes in prior video who it is for. It is for all persons who are suffering from dissociative identity disorders of confusion of identity, caregiver syndrome, burnout, went through hazing to eradicate sense of self or personal separated from others' judgment, have been in such relationships in which expressions of self and own likes and dislikes were punished if contrasted with the other person, or punished in general. When the person was punished for non-paying attention to a person who was sick or a child, and threatened and lost sense of identity, or in such intense relationship, unilateral one, in which sense of self never functioned well. Persons as such are most commonly associated with military active duty and veterans, police, special operations, paramedics, fire brigaders, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, social workers, speech pathologists, also who else to have, correctional facility workers, and every single person that serves also in restaurants and shelters and other places food at expense of a chosen already pre-existing sexual wanted relationship, or unable to determine such fulfilling needs of others, in loss of sense of identity, or forming pseudo relationships as per need of others at all times, dissolved or diluted, I would call diluted in such a way. Persons who fulfill these criteria are first to start from assumption of self exists, is as important as others, and to self most important, more important than God or anybody else, and self, source of life and body, is self at all times, and self is also in possession of judgment, discriminative one, to form likes and dislikes, and also form likes and loves, lasting ones, in dynamic way. And it is also for persons who in mindfulness are expected or were expected for prolonged periods of time function in reliance, losing self, as if one with the whole universe around, to perform tasks in which 1 second of mistake or inattention would cost loss of life or injury, personal or in a larger group. And such persons may still be under impression of having every single movement decided on external circumstances, and unable to have introspection and realization that oneself exists and feeling watched. So first is the exercise I denominate who, what, how, and it is for those described groups to establish that one exists, and when alone with doors closed, such as this, one is alone. It may be that person fears or has impression of being someone else, or feels or the dead person syndrome, that one ceased to exist, or hears voices or has conversations, or prefers to be someone else, in love with somebody else. And all of these things need to be left aside and treated as in Buddhist mind concept described as thoughts coming and going, because existence of self is non-questionable, meaning that needs to be confirmed and realized. What to do? The method who, what, and how consists of being alone, renting a room in motel, hotel, staying alone in forest, in a tent, or in own apartment, house, etc. Locking all doors, making sure that one is alone, and having at hand enough food, water, and having no supervision, switching off all phones and computers. And then consists of meditation and or a few days. I recommend maybe 1 week, between 1 day to 1 week, depending on how much time a person has, in reduction of any stresses. One has to I call it decompression, decompress from all that. And each time now the impression of being someone else appears, having large mirror in which person can see own body. At the beginning it may seem that there are tics or impressions, bodily impressions, as if someone else was talking through one and one was not in control. This is normal and not to panic. With time it will cease. Now the who, what, and how consist of also having piece of paper or having a computer or phone or something to write on, and is done as follows. Listen to me carefully. Who, the answer to that question is I. Each of you will answer it as I, being alone. And then one will describe that I in plain, true to reality and own opinions, positive to purposefulness and usefulness of body, of own existence language. Example, from head to toe. I like my hair. My hair is black. My hair is straight, and I find that it is comfortable, that it is long. I can attach it, and I like how it looks like. And then, for instance, face. I like the shape of my face because my face is actually of a proportional and nice shape to my body. It is easy for me to remember it as such. And I find that, for instance, dark eyebrows, I like it because I don't need to shave my eyebrows and paint them to become darker to have my eyes visible. So I need less makeup, for instance. And internal organs that need to be included. I like, for instance, my lungs. My lungs, despite occasional or based on craving smoking, I like because they function and allow me to still run and perform very strenuous exercises, and smoking even motivates me to do such as a search instinct, similar to pursuit of, for instance, mushrooms. I like that I can, for instance, then it's what I do or how it is that my body functions, action. I like that I have a seeking search urge to, for instance, smoke or find a cigarette, to socialize or to go out and exercise or to go forward when in area that requires strenuous march or walking. And I like that when I am comfortable and I don't feel such urge, such need disappears completely and is absent, and that it establishes that is an example of what, which means my work, a clear relationship for me that presence of a given thing generates searching urge to find it, and absence of it or change of state of mind in which I do not longer enjoy that as most, so finding superior fun or pleasure makes that non-attractive in easiness. And so therefore that is a realization that addiction is actually relative to presence of things and relative to having something that is more interesting versus not to pursue. Nothing more actually for all of us. And so that is how I would recommend for all of you. That is an example of who, what, and how. Who being me, my body, what being what I do, how I move. I like example of that example. I like my voice because it is neither too high nor too low, and I find it personally pleasant to my ears. What, and it is, remember, it's not as opposed to, or it is not also as little as. So the goal is to eliminate any expression that is I at least can move my hand, which is good, because that is not optimistic, optimistic in realization of purposefulness of adaptive mechanism. It can be done in pain. Remember, when in pain, to facilitate, you may need painkillers or some sort of relief, and do accept that as temporary relief to establish full regeneration and adaptation to the best of your knowledge to the external conditions. And that is the goal. Example of that, for instance, I now have money counting tick, but that I know it is because I have a pile of coins and I need to count them. And so that movement made me realize that when I counted, even if I don't take pills, it disappears. And that is an example of what I like. I like that I had such urge. I thought it was in no correlation to reality. Now that I found that correlation, I find that when it appears, I have to do so because I have to, for instance, purchase for self a chewing gum. That's an example. This is true, and there are more serious also purposes, but that is an example of finding good outlook, a realistic one, of purposefulness and being grateful for own body and its functioning. And the same is for aesthetical purposes that are adaptation to what is around, and also that in its uniqueness are diverse and create easiness of forming unique relationships in this regard to others because of others' preferences for even smaller difference and nuance in someone else, and same is self, as opposed to the person that we love and that reciprocates. And such is the exercise called who, what, how, and do so on piece of paper until you achieve plain language. What does this mean? Whenever a term has at least one pejorative denominator or confusing one, use term that is always in any context impossible or difficult to distort, meaning it is not source of curses or offenses, and a practice to elaborate who, what, how to such level in which it is stably good about self and only dynamically adjusted to changes occurring across life, also in regeneration or degeneration that is dynamic in time according to environment, stresses versus relaxation, goods coming and coming, relationships changing, etc., workload changing, etc., pregnancies coming and going, things like that. And so what, who, what, and how is to do in paper until it is in terms that are plain, true to self, and in the best of possible, in purposefulness, ingenuity, true to self, good, optimistic, and true to reality, and adaptation to reality way, and don't so later on contrast and use that with the mirror. So once you finished, each time I recommend undress completely, be naked, close windows if possible, close the doors in own room or in own apartment, and place large mirror. Whenever you wake up and you confuse self for another person, it creates distress. Look in a mirror and assure and remember, I am myself. State to self gender and also state to self name, and then also touch yourself to assure that you exist. Slowly you will regain, if in utmost a lot of strength, sphincter control, appetite, thirst, normal one, and you will also regain sense of touch on face and all of the extremities, despite the stressful activity or being part like a branch of a teamwork, or being in threatening situations, whichever, well, that is similar, or concentrating intensely on others, being the group or one person. And so that is also in mirror practice, doing that who, what, and how, reciting to self from head to toe all of the adjectives and descriptions and depiction of all of your body, and try to make sure that this starts to make you feel happy and good about self, that non-perception of being grounded in reality and being self, because that is the goal. Next will be likes and loves list.